Tom, what brings you to CPAC?
Hi, my name's Tom Havlin. I'm a retired U.S. Air Force major, and for the last 2 years I've been conducting a worldwide embalmer blood clot survey showing embalmers are finding these strange, unusual white fibrous clots in their corpses. And it all started for them back in 2021 after a certain medical intervention was given to a large part of the population. The embalmers are seeing these clots in an average of 20% of their corpses,
Wow.
with some of the embalmers seeing them up to 50% of their corpses. And they're pretty convinced that these things are happening before death because they're finding them in corpses that are only an hour or two old, and they're still riddled with these white fibrous clots.
Can we zoom in real quick and show that? Can you get a good picture of it? Okay, perfect. So, you got it? So, tell us, they say that this forms before the person dies, or are they suggesting that it's a cause that they...
Yes, they are, because if these things grow large enough to where they block off a vein or an artery, that's another interesting thing. They're finding these on the arterial side as well. Blood clots are usually only found on the venous side,
Right,
the
okay,
traditional grape jelly clots.
Gotcha.
And another thing called chicken fat clots. They're much smaller, yellowish in color. They tear easily. Much different than these large, long, white fibrous clots that embalmers that have been embalming for 20 or 30 years have never seen before until the last 3 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And now, so what you have here, is that from one person or is that from multiple people?
No, this is from one person, taken out
Wow.
of one person by embalmer Richard Hirschman, who's one of the 7 embalmers in the movie Died Suddenly, that people can still find on Rumble.
Died suddenly, yeah.
You know, I wasn't sure whether these 6 or 7 embalmers in that movie were a bunch of kooks or not. So what I did is, as a retired Air Force guy, I had the time. So I did 2 worldwide embalmer blood clot surveys. I surveyed embalmers in Canada, United States, UK, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. And in my latest survey that concluded just a month ago, I had 269 responses to that survey.
Wow, that's a lot.
197 of the embalmers saw these white fibrous clots in their corpses. That's 73% of the embalmers saw these in their corpses. Like I said, with many of them seeing them an average of 20% up to almost 50%. Now, I did a survey last year, and it was actually the percentage was a little bit higher last year. They saw these in an average of about 30% of their corpses last year, as opposed to 20%. But that's not necessarily a vindication of the vaccines, because if you think about it, most people took their last jabs way back in 2021.
Yes.
80% of American adults over the age of 18, according to the CDC, took at least the first 2 jabs.
Yes.
But only 20% of Americans took the bivalent Omicron booster back in the fall of 2022. And then this last year in fall of 2023, only 15% of Americans took the XBB 1.5 booster. So you might figure that as you're getting further and further away from people's last jabs, you might just start to see the number of these clots go down, or percentages.
Yeah.
And that's what the embalmers have seen.
Interesting. I got another question. So you
Yeah.
were just mentioning that it was there was 2 sides of the venous side, or there was...
Yeah, and we have the arteries take the oxygenated blood out to our body to feed the body the oxygen, and then once depleted from oxygen, the veins bring it back to the heart. Then it gets run through the heart again. So, and the vein side is a low pressure side, and the arterial side is a much higher pressure side. So that's why embalmers, traditional clots like the grape jelly clots and the chicken fat clots, they never find those on the arterial side. Very rare. But these white fibrous clots, because they're so large and long, they're occurring also on the arterial side as well as the venous side.
Is there any place in particular in the body where this is taking place?
It's taking place all over the body, but the embalmers they find them basically at 2 main points. Their favorite injection site points are the carotid artery in the neck, and then also the iliac artery down in the pelvis. It then runs down near femoral arteries in the legs. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where the clots are forming, but that's where they're being flushed to as the embalming fluid's being pushed in and the blood's being pushed out.
Wow. And let me ask you, so what has been when did you start kind of going about and trying to tell people about what you've been finding?
Well, like I said, I watched the movie Died Suddenly. I wanted to prove whether these 6 or 7 embalmers were a bunch of kooks or not. They're not. There's the data from now 200 embalmers all over the world are corroborating what they're saying. So my message is to get this out there to the world, because I believe that there's very strong correlation between the vaccines and these white fibrous clots. We can't say that for sure, because causation is not necessarily correlation is not necessarily causation. But man, I'm seeing an awful lot of correlation here.
Right. So, eventually, you're seeing what you see with your eyes, and you're like, let me try to put these 2 together. Right? I'm a human. I can do that.
The problem with this is is the Big Pharma's not stopping.
No,
they've
no.
got a shingle shot, an RSV shot, and a flu shot planned for us next year using the mRNA lipid nanoparticle technology. Moderna's got 40 of these things in the pipeline for the next few years to pump out on hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people around the world. So if the vaccines are the cause of these clots and other issues, right, like myocarditis,
yes,
nerve damage,
yes,
miscarriages, turbo cancers, then we need to put a moratorium on Big Pharma until we can make sure that this new technology, this mRNA lipid nanoparticle technology, is indeed safe. I don't believe it is. The data from the embalmers, by the way, one of the questions we asked the embalmers in this year's survey was, what do you see in terms of age stratification? Are these clots appearing in different age groups? They're appearing in all age groups, particularly in those 36 years old and up. And what's interesting about that is that 36 to 50-year-olds, you don't usually associate with having heart attacks and strokes. Usually that doesn't happen to you in your late 50s, early 60s. This is dovetailing very closely with the insurance, disability, and death data that Edward Dow's been collecting.
Yes, absolutely.
So the embalmers are corroborating that information with the results we're getting from the survey.
What has been your experience like getting this word out?
It's difficult to get on I can't get on major networks because most of them are sponsored by Big Pharma, right?
Yes, right.
So I've been going on more minor podcasts. You know what's interesting, though, is I did an interview with a UK physician, John Campbell, who does videos on this just about every day on YouTube. He has to be careful about how he talks about it. But I think and that video is still up. I did it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
I think had I done this video a year ago, I think that YouTube would have banned it, would have struck it down. They did demonetize it for
right,
Dr.
yes,
King,
yeah.
but it's still up. So that's telling me that maybe attitudes are starting to change. Maybe the world is starting to recognize that possibly the vaccines are causing some of these unusual side effects that people are seeing for the last 3 years. So I'm hoping that the tide is turning and the truth is starting to get out.
You are a retired Air Force veteran. What did you fly?
I did not fly. I flew a desk my whole career.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a mathematics degree from the Ohio State University.
Oh, wow.
A bachelor's in electrical engineering from Louisiana Tech. A master's in computer resources information management from Webster University. So I'm a data guy.
You're a data guy.
I'm a data guy.
Explain to people. That's important. I mean, if you want to get involved maybe in the military or Patriot and such, there's obviously guys you got to have flying, but when it comes to aircraft and spacecraft, it requires a lot of engineering and math and data behind that.
I was working on 2 very fun programs. We were outfitting F-16s for 2 foreign allies of ours with new electronics on board, new radar systems, communication systems, etc. And I had a lot of fun doing that job. Unfortunately, I had to leave that job in October of 2021 because Joe Biden came out with the mandates. And I said, I'm not going to take that shot.
Are you telling part of your story is that you refused to take the COVID vaccine, and because of that, you lost your position in the military?
I was actually a defense contractor at the time. I had done my 20 years in the Air Force, retired as a major. I was on my 16th year as a defense contractor, so 36 years in and with the U.S. Air Force. But it all came to an abrupt halt in October of 2021 when I refused to take the jab.
And what has your story been like since then? Not in regards to what you're doing right now, but with the blood clot research that you're doing, but just personally in your life, what was the impact on you economically and personally?
I was fortunate because I had my retired Air Force major's pay. I was also 61 at the time, so I was only a year away from taking Social Security early. My wife's 10 years younger than me, so she still works. So we were able to make it financially. But there's a lot of servicemen that had 10, 15 years in, guys and gals. They were coerced into taking the shots. They had no choice. They couldn't say no because they couldn't give up that multi-million-dollar retirement. They needed the paycheck. Yes. And same with other people in companies around them. Joe Biden, remember, he tried to mandate the jabs on any company that had more than 100 employees.
Yes.
The Supreme Court shot that down, but many companies, in anticipation that would stand, they forced their employees to get the jabs anyways in the third quarter of 2021, which, by the way, is when Embalmer saw an explosion of these, and also when Edward Dow saw an explosion in the death and disability data in the insurance industry. Wow. It just so happened to hit in the third quarter of 2021.
What is your message to those military men and women who refused to take it, lost their jobs? What message of encouragement, or what message you would say, and what would you say to our government that did that, and how could they make it right?
Yeah, bring those people back, restore them to whole, make them whole, right, in terms of pay, and give them an apology. it was wrong. We're a country that's based on individual freedom. You have the right to decide for yourself what's going to get pumped into your body. Nobody should tell you and make you do that. So I bless the people that stood strong. It was hard to do. Yes. They were ridiculed. They were told they were unpatriotic. They were grandma killers. These people stood strong. They stood fast. They had conviction, and God bless every single one of them.
And God bless you, Tom. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you?
They can find me at Thomas Haviland at sbcglobal.net. Especially, I like to talk to embalmers. Whether you're seeing the clots or not, I want to know.